Hello, it's David from David's Avery Electrical Services Limited, and today I shall be talking about the SumUp 3G credit card reader. Now, those of you who run your own business, I don't know about you, but I find asking customers for money to be the most uncomfortable part of my job. I don't know why. I mean, if I'm billing them, then it's because I've done what they asked for, so there shouldn't be any surprises when the invoice is presented. But nonetheless, it's the part of my job I like the least. In order to minimise this pain in my arse, I do four things. Firstly, I use modular pricing, so I don't just make up a price on the spot. Instead, fixed labour rates apply, which makes it easier for me to author estimates or to produce invoices. If the job takes 2 men, 2 hours, then the billing comes out to 4 man-hours. Simple enough. The second thing I do in order to curtail any shocks or surprises is to list my prices upfront on my website. Very few tradespeople seem to do this, but it's a good way to protect oneself from a client who decides they don't want to pay the bill, as they can't really say they had no idea what I was going to charge for small unquoted jobs when my charges are listed out there in the public domain. The third step I take is to send the billing remotely from the office after the fact. The advantage of this is that it depersonalises the experience, so I'm not there when the client opens the invoice. Obviously, if they want to dispute the invoice once received, then they can do so, although hopefully it won't come to that, as again, my charges are up front, and for everyone who says that I'm too expensive, I get someone else saying I'm too cheap. Either way, the diary's full of work, so I guess things are about where they need to be. It doesn't make me rich, but I get a living I kind of enjoy out of it. The fourth thing I do is to offer my clients multiple payment methods, which is where today's video comes in. I like my clients to have a wide range of payment choices. There's the usual smorgasbord of cash, cheque and bank transfer options, of course, but since 2014 I've also had the ability to take credit or debit card payments in person via a Pay11 portable chip and pin reader. So someone stringing me a line about not having ready cash or a mislaid chequebook will quickly have their rug of lies whipped out from under them when I tell them I can take a card payment there and then. What's that you say? You've now lost your wallet entirely? A likely story, you bastard! As I say though, I don't tend to bill the job while out on site. I prefer to email out the invoice from the office afterwards, although one problem of not doing face-to-face billing is that it can take time for an invoice to be paid. Not because the client is avoiding it necessarily, but simply because we all have busy lives and more immediate priorities to be concentrating on. Last year I started cutting down my warranty support on jobs where the invoice hadn't been settled within 5 days. I had been offering 2 years on-site warranty for all work. That's just something I've always done. But now my terms and conditions say that if the invoice isn't settled in full within 5 days, then a 12-month materials only warranty applies. It's just an incentive to get the bills paid sooner. It's a two-way street. I want good support from my clients just the same way as they want good support from me. And if someone is going to take weeks to settle up when the job was done as they wanted, when they wanted, then they shouldn't expect any kind of priority service from me going forward. Fortunately, for me at least, bad payers are relatively rare. Offering a card payment option gives customers peace of mind, as payment by a credit card is protected in the UK under Section 75 of the Consumer Credit Act. A customer who has been burned by a rogue trader in the past may be more accepting of my services if they know they can pay by card, and someone who is a little short on funds may appreciate being able to pay for a job on credit. Now, I mentioned my Pay11 terminal, which I've had since 2014 and which hasn't seen much use. Let's briefly talk about why that is before we move on to the modern tech and how it hopefully addresses the Pay11 problems. Firstly, the Pay11 machine has to connect to a mobile app via Bluetooth, and getting that connection is a friggin' faff. Now, Pay11 merged with SumUp in 2016 and the Pay11 brand disappeared a year later, so here on my mobile phone I've launched the SumUp app to talk to this terminal. The idea is that I type in the amount owing, let's say £50. The app then tells the terminal. It then asks the client to insert their card and enter their PIN, and payment is made. In reality, there's no connection button in the app for it to search for this terminal, and so I end up having to go through Bluetooth bloody pairing every time. Also, there's no update option in the app, so when the terminal did need an over-the-air update, it would only tend to do it just as a transaction was being started, leaving my client holding their credit card and me looking like a chump. The final nail in the coffin for this thing was that a mobile data signal was rarely around when I needed it, much of my work being in rural areas. So all in all, a bit of a faff. Why then have I just forked out over 80 quid for this updated model? Surely it's all going to be all the same trouble. Well, the nice thing about the SumUp 3G reader is, as its name implies, it has its own connection to the mobile data network. So all that prattling around between Bluetooth and my BlackBerry is gone. If this thing has a data signal of its own, then payment can be made. It also supports contactless payments, unlike the old terminal, although few of my invoices would fall under the £30 upper limit for that. We're still stuck with relying on that mobile data connection to be there, but the network has expanded since 2014, and today I have better coverage around these parts than I did perhaps 5 years ago, so there's less chance of it falling flat upon its arse when I need it. Let's run through a test transaction, shall we? I'm just going to do one for £1 here, £1, there we go. I'm going to do it on my, in fact this is my business debit card here, so my business is going to pay itself £1 in some kind of weird Mobius loop which may or may not break the world of banking, somehow akin to how typing Google into Google breaks the internet, I guess. But anyway, let's proceed with the risk, shall we? As I say, I'm using my debit card here, whose identity has been protected by one of those black bars traditionally placed over the eyes of naked people in sleazy publications, or so is my understanding. Let's press enter on that. Obviously, we could do this as a contactless transaction considering its low value, so I could just tap the card onto there, but I'm going to do the full process here so you can see it. So I've inserted the card into the bottom of the reader. Please wait, it says, and enter PIN. You'll forgive me if I enter the PIN off camera. I've got to remember what it is. Press tick. Please wait, it says. Payment approved. Okay, please remove card. Now I have the choice here of no receipt, or emailing a receipt, or even sending a receipt via SMS. If I go to email receipt, for example, and select that, we have this little on-screen touch keyboard, which is surprisingly accurate, even with my chewed nails. If I type in my email address, like I say, it even with my inaccurate prodding, there were no mistakes made there. If I hit OK, it should then send through an email of the transaction, as well as obviously on the SumUp page I log in, my portal page, I can view the transaction on there and see that it all went through okay. So there we are. There we go. Rather, we're all successful. Sure enough, and a few minutes later, here is that receipt, as the customer would see it, showing the transaction details, so lovely stuff. Now, going back to the device itself, it charges via USB-C and comes with a USB-C charge cable, and the screen, as you've seen, is quite large and clear. Although it has a SIM card and a connection to a mobile data network, there is no ongoing running cost for this thing. I paid a one-off fee of £82.80 with VAT, as it was on offer over Christmas. They say the normal price is £99 plus VAT, but I suspect the lower price will remain in effect as the competition for these sort of things is increasing, with the likes of iZettle and PayPal perhaps among the better known. So what's the catch? Well, receiving funds by cheque or bank transfer, or paying in a wad of cash, usually results in bank charges on business accounts. These are mostly quite small, but transactions made by card using this device sees a slice go to SumUp themselves, a 1.69% slice to be accurate. So a £100 invoice will see £1.69 lost as a transaction fee. When SumUp pay the money into my business bank account a few days later, it may also be subject to any fee my bank charges for BACS transfers. Is that a lot? To be honest, I can live with it if it means my bill is paid quickly. It's a bit of a sting on the bigger bills, but I'd rather have that than spend time chasing up stalled invoices. I value my time and peace of mind knowing that a job is done, dusted and paid for, more than having to badger a slow payer over days or even weeks. It's just another overhead, along with many more, that you have to factor into your pricing as a business owner. You can't pass it directly on, as the law changed in January 2018, banning charges on credit and debit card transactions. Not that I ever levied charges for such. The amount on the invoice is what is owed as far as I'm concerned, even if it costs me more to process some payments over others. In a change to the way I operate, and despite my British discomfiture, I am now trying to bill for smaller jobs while still on site to avoid any potential payment faff, and that's where this thing comes into its own. But if I have a stalled invoice and a client who is proving a little unresponsive to my prompts for payment, then it's nice to know I can doorstep them when next passing with this thing in my hand and see if I can't get them to cough up on card, or at least look them in the eye as they shuffle about trying to make up on the-spot excuse for being a tight wanker. So what I've been babbling about here are card present transactions. I need the client to physically present their card to the device to process the payment. So I can't use this thing for taking payment via card over the phone. If you're looking to take card payments yourself remotely, then there are other options which work separately to the physical card reader to provide your business and your clients with yet more flexibility. In 2016, I was looking to take card not present transactions, specifically on my website. As I was billing from the office after the job, I wanted to give clients an easy means to make a payment other than posting a cheque, bringing me physical cash, or making payment electronically via a bank transfer, which some people are nervous about because it offers little protection should the amount end up in the wrong place or the client subsequently feels a refund is warranted should a dispute arise over the work. Back then I looked at two options, the first being PayPal, who are arguably perhaps the best known payment provider for fartbox operations such as mine. It is, I'm sure, a name we're all familiar with. The trouble with PayPal is they're a big, faceless, uncaring nightmare, and I had a technical problem with my account. There was nothing I could do about it, it was a problem at their end. But despite owning a support case, it took nearly a year for them to sort it out, which is unforgivable. I'm a business trying to use their services for business transactions, and they can't formally resolve some ridiculous account hiccup inside of months. That's just not a business grade solution. Some thief using PayPal to take payment for the stolen goods they're hawking on eBay would get better customer support than that. Well, fuck them. A second option I tried was no checks, whose business practices were even worse. I mean, I can understand that PayPal are just too big to even care, but no checks are just a handful of clowns based in Leeds, so any perceived ineptitude from them certainly wasn't down to their monstrous size. Quite the opposite, considering they seem to operate out of a few rented rooms in an anonymous building on a fume-filled northern industrial estate. No checks' problem is that their apparent assumption is all our customers are potential fraudsters, so let's treat them as such. They took 50 quid off me as a setup fee, processed just 4 card transactions over the course of a month, moved the goalposts on the terms and conditions of my account over that time, and finally threw in the towel and closed my account altogether. And without explanation, in some kind of shit fit that I was doing something dodgy. It was fucking bizarre. Plus, it took weeks to get my money out of them, and they kept the 50 quid setup fee, of course. Oh, what the hell is this? You got to be shitting me. No checks are claiming to be the UK's #1 alternative to PayPal. Well, for wank customer service, maybe. I mean, what a knobby claim to be making. It's like some small turd comparing themselves to a larger turd. It's a moot point when you stink of shit. You don't have to take my word for it, though. There are plenty of people on Trustpilot reporting how No Checks provides a payment gateway for scam phone unlocking services, so you'd have to question if they're really fit and proper for handling the business transactions of your company and your clients. Anyway, this video is long enough, and I don't want to get into a rant here, or no more than I have done already. So for more detail on my experiences with both PayPal and No Checks, see the link in the description. It's all there on my website. Eventually, I went with WorldPay for my card not present transactions, so clients can use the payment page on my website and be directed to WorldPay secure checkout for debit or credit card payments. WorldPay also have a virtual terminal service through their web portal, allowing you to take card payments over the phone, although there's a monthly subscription for that, and I wasn't using it enough to justify the costs, so I knocked that on the head. WorldPay take a higher commission, again at 2.75%, but customers appreciate having the easy option to pay online and the protection that credit card payment gives them. I'd rather receive a bank transfer, but if WorldPay means that an invoice will be settled quicker, then I'll take it. And so ends another video. Not much about electrical work in this one, sorry about that, but I might try and do a few more of these videos that talk more about the business aspect of, well, running the business. Anyway, any comments, obviously leave them below. I do try to read them all. Otherwise, have a good night and cheers.